Imagine a young player coming into the NBA with the promise of greatness, catching the attention of some of the most legendary players in the game.
6 minutes to go in the third. Toney, baseline against Magic, reverse layup.
Andrew Toney was once that player, a rising star whose potential seemed limitless. But today, his name is hardly mentioned in conversations about NBA legends. So, what happened to the player who could have been one of the greatest to ever play the game? This is the untold story of the forgotten NBA player who almost became a legend. Andrew Toney's journey to the NBA began long before his name was ever called at the 1980 NBA draft. Growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, Toney developed a passion for basketball at a young age. His talent was evident early on, and he quickly became a star at his high school in Birmingham. Toney's skills were so remarkable that he earned a scholarship to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, where he would soon make history. During his time at Lafayette, Toney became the face of the team, setting multiple school records and showcasing his scoring ability. He led the Reagan Cajuns to a memorable run in the National Invitation Tournament, NIT, and by his senior year, Toney had firmly established himself as one of the top shooting guards in college basketball. His college career ended with impressive numbers: 18.6 points per game, 4.6 assists, and 2.6 rebounds. And he quickly became a hot commodity for NBA scouts. When the 1980 NBA draft rolled around, Toney was selected by the Philadelphia 76ers with the 8th overall pick. It was a pivotal moment for the franchise as the 76ers were looking to build around the young talents of Julius Erving and Maurice Cheeks. Toney's addition to the roster was seen as a major boost to the 76ers' title aspirations. His debut season was impressive, and his ability to score from anywhere on the court made him an instant threat. Averaging 12.9 points per game as a rookie, Toney's offensive game was smooth, but his defense was even more remarkable. The combination of his offensive skills and defensive prowess made him an ideal fit in the 76ers system. By the end of his first season, Toney had established himself as a player to watch. He was named to the NBA All-Rookie Second Team, and the city of Philadelphia began to take notice. The 76ers saw in him the future of their franchise, a key player who could help them contend for championships in the years to come. The combination of Toney's quickness, shooting touch, and defensive tenacity seemed to make him the perfect complement to the likes of Dr. J, Julius Erving, and Moses Malone. In his second season, Toney's play only got better. He averaged 17.5 points per game, and his shot-making ability made him a key player in clutch situations. This was the start of something special, as Toney's rise in the league seemed destined to continue. Little did anyone know this was just the beginning of a career that would be filled with promise and heartbreak. Andrew Toney's reputation began to solidify in the 1982 and 1983 Eastern Conference Finals, where he faced off against the Boston Celtics in back-to-back years. The Celtics were the dominant team in the East, led by Larry Bird, and the rivalry between the 76ers and Celtics was one of the most heated in the NBA at the time. It was here, in the heat of battle, that Toney's true potential was unleashed. In the 1982 Eastern Conference Finals, Toney's performance was nothing short of legendary. In Game 5, he scored a blistering 34 points, leading the 76ers to a victory that helped them secure a crucial series lead. His performance was a stark reminder to the Celtics that the 76ers were a team to be reckoned with, and Toney was the spark that ignited their offense. Toney's aggressive play and ability to score in a variety of ways kept the Celtics on edge, and even Larry Bird, who was known for his confidence and composure, later admitted that Toney was one of the toughest players he ever faced. But it wasn't just Game 5 that made Toney stand out. It was his ability to rise to the occasion every time the 76ers needed him most. In the 1983 Eastern Conference Finals, Toney played a crucial role in the 76ers' sweep of the Celtics. His clutch performances in pivotal moments were a testament to his ability to handle the pressure of postseason basketball. The Celtics, who had been the kings of the East for years, were now facing a team that had a player in Toney who was ready to take the crown. Toney's impact on the court was undeniable. His ability to score with efficiency, whether it was from beyond the arc or in the mid-range, made him an offensive weapon. And defensively, Toney's quickness and tenacity on the ball were unmatched. For a player of his size, 6 feet 3 inches, he played much bigger than his frame, often guarding players taller and stronger than him with ease. This versatility made Toney not just a great scorer, but also one of the more well-rounded players in the league at the time. Unfortunately, despite Toney's dominance against the Celtics and his rise as one of the league's most promising stars, the narrative of his career would soon take a sharp turn. The 76ers would go on to win the 1983 NBA championship, but it would be one of the last times that Toney played at a truly elite level. His ascent to stardom would be met with the cruel reality of injuries that would ultimately derail what could have been a Hall of Fame career. Toney's career was full of promise, but injuries became the defining theme of his NBA journey. It all began with a chronic foot problem that would plague him for the remainder of his career. The injury, which initially seemed like a minor setback, eventually became a constant source of frustration for Toney. As his foot problems persisted, they not only affected his playing time, but also his ability to play at the high level that he had once been known for. By the mid-1980s, Toney's injuries had started to take a toll on his performance. The explosiveness and agility that had made him such a dynamic player were now limited, and his confidence on the court began to wane. It was a devastating blow for a player who had once looked destined for greatness. Toney struggled to find his rhythm and was often forced to play through pain, which only further exacerbated his injury woes. Despite his best efforts, Toney's decline was inevitable. His playing time began to decrease, and his once promising career started to fade into the background. In 1988, Toney was forced to retire from the game at just 28 years old, far earlier than anyone had anticipated. It was a heartbreaking end to what had been a promising NBA career. His early retirement robbed the league of one of its most exciting young stars, and fans of the 76ers were left wondering what could have been if Toney had been able to stay healthy. In his 8 years in the league, Toney played in just 373 games, far fewer than most players who were considered to be at the same level of talent. Yet, even in the limited time he spent on the court, Toney left an indelible mark on the game. His 7,400 career points, 2 All-Star appearances, an integral role in the 76ers' 1983 championship run remain a testament to his potential. But the injuries prevented him from fully realizing that potential, and his name is now often overlooked in the history of the NBA. As Toney's career ended prematurely, the league was left with the painful what-if questions. What if he had remained healthy? What if he had been able to continue his dominance against the league's best players? The answers to these questions will never come, but one thing is for certain. Andrew Toney was a player who could have been a legend. As much as injuries played a significant role in Andrew Toney's downfall, there were other factors at play behind the scenes that further contributed to his career decline. Team dynamics, the shifting power structure within the 76ers, and internal pressure all created an environment that was difficult for Toney to thrive in. In the late 1980s, the 76ers began to make significant changes to their roster, and the team's chemistry started to shift. This had a direct impact on Toney, who had always thrived in the role he played on the team. Toney was known for his quiet demeanor and was never one to make waves, but the pressure of being the next big thing took its toll. The mental aspect of the game, particularly dealing with chronic injuries and the uncertainty surrounding his future, began to weigh heavily on him. In interviews, Toney later admitted that the stress of trying to stay on the court while battling injuries became mentally exhausting. The pressure to perform, combined with the feeling of his career slipping away, led to emotional struggles that affected his play. Even with the physical setbacks, Toney's teammates and coaches spoke about his dedication to the game and his willingness to fight through adversity. But as the 76ers roster began to change, the spotlight shifted to other players. Toney found himself playing in a supporting role rather than being the focal point of the offense. This transition, combined with the internal struggles he was facing, made it increasingly difficult for him to find his rhythm. Despite all of these factors, Toney remained beloved by his teammates and respected by his peers. His work ethic was never in question, and those who knew him best still believed in his ability to return to his former self. But the truth was that his time in the NBA was running out, and his career, which had once seemed so bright, was nearing its end. The internal and external factors that contributed to Toney's fall from grace were complex, but ultimately it was a combination of injuries, mental strain, and shifting team dynamics that caused his promising career to crash down far too soon. Andrew Toney's career, though filled with moments of brilliance, has largely been overshadowed by those of other NBA legends. The 1980s were a golden era in basketball, with players like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Michael Jordan dominating the headlines. Unfortunately, Toney's career, despite his immense talent, was cut short due to injuries and is often overshadowed by the bigger names of the time. The injury-plagued nature of his career meant that he never had the longevity necessary to cement his place in the history books, and his name has faded from the collective memory of NBA fans. Even though Toney may not have reached the heights of superstardom like some of his contemporaries, his legacy remains strong among those who remember his incredible skill on the court. His nickname, the Boston Strangler, was earned through his spectacular performances against the Celtics during some of the most intense playoff series of the 1980s. He became the Celtics' worst nightmare, and his performances in the Eastern Conference Finals were nothing short of legendary. For anyone who saw him play, Toney's contributions to the 76ers' success during those years are unforgettable. In the city of Philadelphia, Toney is remembered fondly by 76ers fans, many of whom still talk about his key role in their 1983 championship run. His clutch performances and his ability to step up when the pressure was on made him a fan favorite. Even after his retirement, the city never fully let go of Toney's legacy. His connection with Philadelphia was undeniable, and it was clear that his impact on the team went far beyond his statistical output. However, as the years have gone by and the NBA evolved into the high-flying, superstar-driven spectacle it is today, Toney's name has gradually faded into obscurity. When we talk about great shooting guards in NBA history, Toney is rarely mentioned alongside names like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, or even Clyde Drexler. It's not because he wasn't deserving of the recognition, but because his career was tragically brief and derailed by injuries. His story, like so many others in professional sports, is a what could have been narrative that continues to haunt those who remember his potential. Despite his decline, Toney's impact on the game should not be forgotten. His role in the 1983 finals, where he was a key contributor to the 76ers' dominant run, and his ability to guard some of the toughest players of the time make him a forgotten gem of NBA history. He was ahead of his time, an all-around player capable of scoring, defending, and facilitating, and his style of play was one that influenced those who watched him. The fact that his name isn't as recognizable today doesn't diminish the impact he had during his prime. Andrew Toney may not have achieved the lasting fame he deserved, but in the hearts of those who watched him play, he remains a legend. The fact that his career ended too soon only adds to the mystery of what could have been. His legacy as a forgotten legend lives on, and his name will always be etched in the memories of those who witnessed his greatness on the court. The lingering question that surrounds Andrew Toney's career is, what might have been? What if injuries hadn't derailed his rise to superstardom? What if his prime had been longer and he had been able to maintain the high level of play he showcased in his early years? Toney's potential was so vast that it's almost impossible not to imagine the kind of impact he could have had if circumstances had been different. He was a player with all the tools necessary to join the ranks of the NBA's elite. At the height of his career, Toney was one of the most versatile shooting guards in the game. He had the ability to score from anywhere on the court, from deep three-pointers to mid-range jumpers, and he could attack the basket with quickness and agility. His defensive ability was also a hallmark of his game. Toney was known for his ability to lock down the opposing team's best perimeter player, and his toughness and basketball IQ were often praised by coaches and players alike. He was a complete player, capable of taking over a game both offensively and defensively. Had Toney stayed healthy, it's possible that the 76ers could have built their dynasty around him. The 1983 championship run was the pinnacle of the team's success. But there were still years of potential left for Toney to continue to improve and mature as a player. If his injuries hadn't slowed him down, he could have been the face of the 76ers through the rest of the 1980s, and the team could have been a legitimate contender for multiple championships. His chemistry with players like Julius Erving, Moses Malone, and Morris Cheeks could have been the foundation for an even more dominant era. It's also worth considering the effect Toney could have had on the league. The 1980s were a time when the NBA was beginning to truly flourish, and players like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird helped elevate the sport to new heights. Toney, with his combination of skills, charisma, and leadership, had the potential to be a key figure in this era of basketball. He could have been one of the faces of the NBA, helping to usher in a new generation of fans who admired his style of play and his ability to shine on the big stage. The question of what might have been extends beyond the 76ers. Toney was a player who could have impacted the entire NBA landscape. His scoring ability, his tenacity on defense, and his competitive spirit were all qualities that made him a unique talent in the league. If given the chance to fully develop and play for a longer period, Toney could have rivaled some of the greats of the 1980s and early 1990s. He could have been a multiple-time All-Star, an NBA Finals MVP, and even a Hall of Famer, cementing his legacy among the best to ever play the game. In the end, Toney's story is a bittersweet one. He was a player who had all the potential in the world, but injuries and circumstances prevented him from fully realizing that potential. His career serves as a reminder of the fragility of athletic success and how quickly things can change in the world of professional sports. The legend of Andrew Toney will never be fully written, but his place in basketball history remains secure, even if it's not as widely recognized as it should be. And for those who remember his game, Toney's greatness lives on in the what-ifs that will forever accompany his name. Andrew Toney's story is a cautionary tale of talent unrealized and potential unfulfilled. A player who had the skills, mentality, and heart to become one of the NBA's all-time greats, Toney's career was tragically cut short by injuries that robbed him of his prime years. He was a star in the making, a player whose ability to score, defend, and impact the game was evident from the start. Toney's clutch performances against the Boston Celtics, his role in the 1983 championship run, and his relentless spirit on the court remain a testament to what could have been. Yet, his name is often overlooked in discussions about the greatest players of the 1980s, not because he lacked the talent, but because the game was denied the chance to see him reach his full potential. As the years pass, Andrew Toney's legacy has been overshadowed by the legends of his era, but for those who remember, he will always be a what-if player, one of the brightest stars whose light was extinguished far too soon. His story serves as a reminder of the fragility of greatness in professional sports and how the unpredictable nature of injuries can change the course of a career in the blink of an eye. Though Toney may never be recognized in the same breath as Magic Johnson or Larry Bird, his contributions to the game should never be forgotten. The legend of Andrew Toney lives on in the memories of those who witnessed his brilliance and in the lessons we learn from the talents that never fully materialized. But here's the real question. What if Andrew Toney had stayed healthy? How would the NBA landscape have shifted with him at his peak? Could he have truly changed the course of history, challenging the very dynasties that dominated his time? As you think about Toney's career, one thing becomes clear. Sometimes the biggest stories in the NBA are the ones that never got fully told. And who knows, maybe this forgotten legend still has secrets waiting to be uncovered.
They want everyone over to the one side now. Curran and Richardson. They isolate Toney on Cooper.